Yeah, average Canada W, of course. I'll get to that in a sec. I haven't even written the ah! I need to figure out how the positioning of my microphone is gonna work, because I keep running into the issue where I like almost knock it over. Okay. Alright. Here. Let's see. There we go. Very nice. Okay. I have begun to cultivate what I think is a good habit of, like, setting the stream title a little bit beforehand, so I don't have to do as much clamoring on the day of, which is nice. So I settled on, you know, glory to the People's Keynesian Republic of Canada, and so forth. I have a couple of things to say about the aftermath of the Canadian election. Most of it good, actually. Most of it is good things, actually. Although, obviously, because Mark Carney and the Liberals are still Liberals, there's going to be an asterisk with some of that, but yeah. Alright, I just wanted to take a moment to clarify something. I don't end up elaborating a whole lot later on this asterisk that I mentioned, so I'll do so now. Mark Carney and all the other adherents of liberal ideology, particularly, I mean, the Liberal Party of Canada, are still ideologically capitalist, which means the upward consolidation of capital, private ownership of production and property, all these things that are responsible for poverty, wealth inequality, and the working class existing in a generally wretched and stressful state will not be resolved under their governance ever. Even under a Keynesian framework, markets are left to churn largely on their own, which means all these things will steadily worsen through shareholder profiteering, cutting corners, exploiting workers, general enshittification, etc., to say nothing of international trade and the relationship between the global north and the global south as well, until the government intervenes once an amount of damage has already been done. And while Mark Carney may be more inclined to intervene and put money into the working class as opposed to doing tax cuts for the wealthy and quote-unquote haircuts, which are pay cuts for, like, workers and unions and business bailouts. The fact is that such crises and economic problems will still persist. That damage still can be done because the relationships and cycles that create them and that generally worsen things aren't changed at a fundamental level. This is what's known as suppressing contradictions as opposed to resolving them. Although keep in mind, as far as liberals go, Mark Carney's probably one of the best there is. Take that however you will. And now back to the video. That much is at least nice. Oh shit. When in doubt, pick Mario because his skin is incredible. This is also probably going to be a bit shorter of a stream today. Yo, what's up, bro, the boss? Welcome back. So, wringing my hands together, huh? I talked a little bit about the Canadian elections last time because I was streaming on the day that the elections were happening. I stayed up late that night actually to watch those elections as they unfolded in real time as the polling numbers came in. And it's kind of funny. Yeah, average Canada W, of course. I'll get to that in a sec. But the live coverage was in some ways a lot better, in some ways a lot worse, actually, if you can believe it, than the coverage of American elections. This is a problem that I didn't even know could exist because it was almost like below what I expected to, like, anybody to even sink to. What's up, Gotron? Welcome back. Is that, like, there were some, if you guys watched the coverage, you'll know what I'm talking about here, but there were some, like, races going on where it was like there's like 100 or so polling stations, and they would show the results up and like make some kind of projection and analysis when there was one polling station reporting with a total of like a few hundred votes, and it was like, oh, this candidate has 50 votes and this other candidate has 49, and they're like, wow, this could mean ups and blah 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 blah, and it was like, man, what are you doing? It's like this province has something like 20,000 people in it, and you're like, oh my god, electoral upset when like 5 votes are in. So that was really funny to watch because it was like, you know, you guys should probably fix that. But as the night went on, more and more results poured in. And I feel like that part of the coverage is ultimately forgivable because obviously they only started talking about that as the polls had closed and results were coming in. So all the votes were already cast. And of course, the result of those votes is that the Liberal Party of Canada won not a majority, to my recollection, but a plurality of the votes, which is good. It's almost like they were like, "Don't worry, Republicans still have a possibility of winning." Yeah, it did. It did seem kind of like that. The news coverage. It sort of seemed like when they err on the side of caution or whatever, they always be like, oh, well, the Conservatives can still make up ground here. And it's like, come on, guys. You know? Although, to their credit, they did actually call the election pretty early for the Liberals. They were like, yeah, it looked like pretty early on, they were like, oh, yeah, it's pretty evident that the Liberals are winning this election. They are going to win all the data that we have. And from what, from the vote count that is like coming in, it seems like the Liberals are going to win, and the question is by how much, you know? Yeah, it's like the whole trying not to look biased in a case where like the set of facts that you're dealing with so obviously indicates one thing, makes you biased towards the other thing, right? Like if you're still trying to play it 50-50 when there's a 99.9% chance that the Liberals are winning this election, that means you're biased for the Conservatives and you're trying to like gas them up basically, you know? So that was pretty cringe. But what wasn't cringe is that the Liberals won and the Conservatives lost. Get fucked, idiots. And now I kind of want to talk about some of the implications of this election, the results, and whatnot. First of all, we have to mention that this is, in fact, the funniest timeline. Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, lost his own seat. He ran against a Liberal politician as the incumbent, mind you. He was in that seat. He was already an MP in order to be, you know, the leader of the Conservative Party. And he lost his own election. Not only did the Conservative Party lose, their leader lost. And, you know, he's fucking cooked. His career in politics is completely done, you know? And, yeah, and in fact, it was in no small part, I bet it was relevant to why that happened, that Donald Trump, on the same day, took to Truth Social and said, Pierre Poilievre, he's great, by the way. He loves Canada, loves Canadians. I would love Canada if it were part of the United States. The border, the Canadian border, it's a pretend border. It's not real. It's a fake line drawn in the sand, and we should accept it into America as the 51st state. My Trump impression isn't great because I'm just started, but you get the idea, right? That was the gist of his post. I would be hard pressed to cite it because it was like way more schizophrenic than I could manage, and had caps lock everywhere. And Pierre Poilievre was like, haha, oh, you stop it. I support Canada, but also like, thank you, President Trump, or something. So predictably, it was a blowout. Imagine how mad the average Canadian would be in an altered universe where they're forced to integrate with America. Oh yeah, they would be pissed. Because Canada actually has like a national ego in that way. So, funniest timeline, Comrade Trump campaigns on behalf of Mark Carney by throwing his support behind the Conservatives. continuing to show that the American far right is toxic for other far right movements. I can touch on that in a second, bro, the boss. But yes, so that was one implication of this election. I think some of the other implications for Canada of this election is that we might see a something reminiscent of post-war social democracy, and it does also bode well for the fate of countries outside of the United States related to the far right. Since the United States exports far right ideology, we are a cultural exporter of fascism because fascism is an ideology of capital. Capital is international, thus so is fascism. But because it's exported from America, it's going to resemble America. So every country hates us for that because, the American fascists have been like, we're going to put tariffs on everybody and you all need to, suck my balls or something. That, I think, means that other countries will probably be more hostile to fascism in the coming years, which is good. And of course, Mark Carney being, I think, maybe not even a neoliberal so much as a Keynesian liberal, means that Canada might be in for some good, policy nerd shit, with affordable housing policy and things like that. This bodes well for countries outside of America. As for America, I don't think it bodes particularly well. I don't know if it bodes poorly either. But I think insofar as the 2028 election in America, I don't think that there's much that we can get from this election, because if you look at the electoral circumstances in America, it's still cooked. The Democrats still suck, the Republicans are still evil, and it's very likely that we don't really have a proper election in 2028. It looks like for some time America is going to be in a similar position, electorally speaking, to somewhere like Hungary or Turkey, where you have still a vestige of liberal institutions and institutionalism and things like that, but there is no free and fair elections. It's kind of a one-party state, both because the Republicans, the Republican Party, the far right in America, is rigging the game, and because the Democrats are unwilling to, fight back. At the very least, you could say this season will be memorable. Presidential season. You could very well say that. I think if J.B. Pritzker is the American presidential candidate in 2028, then we might be Barack. We might be so Barack. But until then, I think it's still kind of looking Jover for America. But either way, another L on the illustrious belt of L's for global fascism, that's always a good thing for everybody. And I've seen a lot of people being really optimistic for Canada's future because, like I said, Mark Carney and the Canadian Liberals look like they're pivoting towards social democratic policymaking, stuff like affordable housing and basically shoring up the mental health care system and stuff like that. Good job, Canada. You didn't elect the fascists. You notice they actively make fun of Trump on their news? Yes, it's actually crazy how cucked American news is, because you can look at other countries' news and they will much more willingly make fun of the far right in their country and in other countries, right? Canadian news was all over that shit. Thanks for watching, and support the channel if you would be so kind.